And we hope to have something which is to be serious about the reality of dealing with, on an equal footing with the Muslim majority countries, because this is exactly what you were saying. It's a power struggle, and sometimes it's a perception of the power talking to the powerless. So an equal footing. We have to be serious about democracy, and we have to be serious about transparency. We have to be very serious about this, because if now this opportunity is lost, we need, again, 50 years. Because this is a very important time. After 8 years of the Bush administration, to have this change is really not to lose this opportunity. This is where we have all together to come to something which has to do with, first, an important point, which is a true democratization, not to go to impose models. You share principles and you let the countries find their models. The United States of America do not have the monopoly on the only right political model. But we are sharing universal values. And this is something which is, as Muslims, from here we should say it, and we will find Muslims in Muslim majority countries that are ready to say it. And they are already saying it. And I think that we have to listen. Now, when we speak about, you may agree or not with Islamist trends, as long as they are against violence and they are playing the political game, we have to talk to them. There is no way to say you are a good Muslim because you are supporting me, you are a bad Muslim because you are resisting me. It may be that the people who are resisting the American policy in the Middle East sometimes are more democratic than the people who are supporting the American one. And I can tell you something about my own country of origin. I cannot go because of lack of democracy. So I would say here that this is something which is important, and let me also say something about the three main issues, which is Palestine. Of course, this is a very important thing, and we have to be all involved in this. We heard that we have to acknowledge the suffering of the Palestinians, but let us now, it's not only the suffering, it's the rights that should be respected. And this is why we have to be involved in something. It's not going to work with the Muslim majority countries if you keep on not solving the problem of Palestine and the Palestinian rights. Exactly the same with Afghanistan, exactly the same with Iraq. These are sensitive issues, and us, from where we are, we should be critical and constructive in the way we say the current American policy in the Middle East should be reassessed, changed, and reformed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Ramadan. This is now the second time that I've had the honor of appearing on the stage with Professor Ramadan, and first time in the United States, and lo and behold, the earth did not open up and swallow us all alive. It's a great pleasure to be here at this conference. I've been a great fan of Ramadan and what everybody else is doing here, and I especially thank the volunteers who I'm glad finally got to eat. And want to obviously thank Congressman Ellison. I've been a fan and a supporter of his for many, many years. What I find extraordinary is not that he's the first Muslim member of the Congress, but that he is probably the first congressman who knows who Edward Said is. Remarkable. I want to also give just thanks to Professor Peter Mandeville, who in my incredibly nerdy world is a rock star. So thank you for having me here. I'm going to cause a little bit of trouble, if that's all right with everyone. In fact, you know, the theme of this conference is 1 year after Cairo. I'm going to take you back to 5 years after Cairo, by which I mean that historic moment in which then Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice arrived in Cairo to herald the sort of loose set of policy proposals that were being dubbed the Bush Doctrine at the time, which amongst some more problematic aspects included this issue of democracy promotion. And not just democracy promotion, because let's be honest here, I mean, almost every president, you know, and since Woodrow Wilson has been talking about democracy promotion, but this new idea that the promotion of democracy would not just be an American foreign policy objective, but it would be the very foundation upon upon which relations between the United States and Muslim-majority states around the world would be built. This sort of promise. And the way that Secretary of State Rice put Muslim leaders especially on notice that the United States would henceforth be standing with those who are suffering under tyranny and oppression. Now, of course, as you all remember, it's not long ago, this notion was really ruthlessly ridiculed here at home. For the most part, I think people responded to Bush's democracy promotion, and with good reason, of course, as either merely just an excuse for the invasion and occupation of Muslim-majority states, or as some kind of, hypocritical and cynical ploy to get people to forget the fact that, the people who live under tyranny and oppression are mostly found in countries that are our greatest allies, including, of course, Egypt, in which the speech was given. And I think that there was a real disappointment amongst a lot of American Muslims as well, who were no fans of George W. Bush, but who seemed to kind of gloss over the implications of what that policy could entail, and immediately joined the chorus of negative comments about the whole stupidity of this notion that we could, quote-unquote, promote democracy in the region. But what I thought was fascinating and very underreported here in the United States was that while most Americans thought that this was a cynical ploy and frankly, maybe even a stupid decision, turns out most Muslims did not think that. In fact, a few months after that first Cairo speech, Secretary Rice, Gallup International issued a poll that showed that 78% of Muslims throughout the world, 78% considered, quote, democracy the best form of government. 6 months later, Pew came out with a similar poll, an interesting one that showed over 2/3 of people living in the United States and in the European Union saying that democracy would never work in Muslim-majority states, and the whole promotion of it is pointless. What was fascinating is exactly the same number, 2/3 of Muslims polled from 27 Muslim-majority states said the exact opposite, that not only would democracy work in their nations, but that they wanted it right now. Not, 10 years from now, but right now, as Bush was speaking. So, in a sense, it was kind of an interesting dichotomy between the reaction, the initial reaction of Muslims around the world to Bush's promotion and to those here in the United States. But regardless, what ultimately the immediate consequence of that speech was this wave of democratic participation and sort of democratic fervor across the Middle East. We saw it in countries like Algeria and Yemen and Tunisia, Lebanon, Palestine, obviously, Bahrain, Jordan, Morocco, even Saudi Arabia got in on the act a little bit. But interestingly enough, it was, of course, in Egypt, the site of that speech, where the whole concept was, in some ways launched, in which the sort of the merits and the consequences of this notion of democracy promotion was most obviously felt. Speaking, of course, about the fact that under the pressure from the Bush administration, President Mubarak was, for the first time, allowed someone to actually run against him in these sham, farcical presidential elections that he insists on having every 6 years. Which was a pretty good start. I mean, yes, it's true, the person running against him was campaigning from a prison cell, but hey, you gotta start somewhere. And of course, more significantly was the fact that members of the Muslim Brotherhood were allowed for the very first time to take part in the political process. The results were immediate. 88 seats in the useless parliament that Mubarak runs were given to members of